In 1869, two young men are seen burying a chest, and they hope that no one will find it. The scene continues 100 years later in 1969 by showing a boy named Alan. Alan doesn't have many friends and is often bullied by other kids. Even so, Alan is the son of a rich man. His father is a successful businessman and owns the biggest shoe factory in town. When Alan is riding his bike, the bullies follow him from behind and they try to chase him. Alan has no choice but to hide in his father's shoe factory. There he meets a factory employee named Carl. Carl is a genius in shoe design and has succeeded in creating new shoe innovations that have never existed before. He plans to show his shoe design to Mr. Parrish as a surprise. Then Mr. Parrish comes and tells Alan to leave this factory because it is too dangerous for children. But Alan is careless and accidentally puts Carl's shoe on the crusher, which causes the machine to be badly damaged. Seeing this, Alan just runs away and is irresponsible. Carl eventually is forced to admit that the carelessness was his fault. When Alan goes home, it turns out that the bullies are still there waiting for him. One of them is Billy and he tells Alan to stay away from his girlfriend named Sarah. Alan tries to explain that he and Sarah are just friends, but Billy doesn't believe it and they immediately beat him. With a broken face, Alan decides to go home, but on the way he hears a mysterious voice that makes him curious. He tries to find the source of the strange sound in a construction project. Apparently, the voice comes from inside the mud wall, so Alan digs it up and discovers a mysterious chest buried inside. After he opens it, it turns out that the chest contains a very thick box with Jumanji written on the cover, and Alan takes the box home. At dinner, his father decides to send Alan to a boarding school so that he will never be bullied again by the children in this town, but Alan refuses and is angry with his parents. He even threatens to run away from home and won't talk to his father anymore. His parents don't care and go to attend an invitation. When he is preparing to run away from home, Sarah comes to return his bicycle, which was stolen by the bullies. Alan finally changes his mind and invites Sarah to open the mysterious box that he found this afternoon. After they open it, it turns out that the box is a board game like a game of snakes and ladders. Sarah initially refuses to play it, but she accidentally rolls the dice and her throw shows she gets 6. The pawn immediately moves and a message appears: "At night they fly, you better run. These wing things are not much fun." Suddenly they hear a strange sound. Sarah tells Alan not to play this game and puts down the dice. Alan puts the dice down, but the game board thinks that Alan has thrown the dice and gets number 5. Alan's pawn begins to move and then it says, "In the jungle you must wait until the dice read 5 or 8. Suddenly, Alan is sucked into the Jumanji board. He tells Sarah to roll the dice and continue the game, but at the same time the bat starts to come out. Sarah is terrified and leaves Alan trapped in the game. 26 years later, after Alan disappears, there is a new family who will buy Alan's house. They are Nora and her 2 nieces, Judy and Peter. They are orphans because their parents died in an accident in Canada. Because of the many rumors about Alan's disappearance where he was reportedly killed tragically, Nora finally buys the house at a very cheap price. Even after occupying the house, Judy and Peter always hear strange sounds. The next day after their aunt left for work, Judy and Peter ventured to find the source of the sound. It turns out that the mysterious voice came from the warehouse on the top floor. They finally find the Jumanji game box and they immediately play it without reading the rules of the game. Judy rolls the dice and gets a 6, which gives rise to a giant mosquito, while Peter gets a twin 2, which gives rise to a group of monkeys, causing their kitchen to fall apart. Judy finally reads the Jumanji game rules and realizes that they must finish the game so that all the animals that appear will disappear. Peter can roll the dice again because he gets the same number. Unfortunately, the second roll is the number 5 and it gives rise to a lion, which makes them both terrified. But number 5 not only brings out the lion but also frees Alan from the Jumanji world after being trapped there for 26 years. Alan tries to fight the lion and locks him in the room. Alan is very happy to be back in the real world and he thanks Peter for getting the number 5 and saving him. Alan tries to find his parents, but he has to accept the harsh reality that his parents no longer lived in this house. He then runs into the middle of the road and is almost hit by a police car. It turns out he is Carl, a former employee of his father. They don't have time to talk because suddenly the monkeys that came out of Jumanji steal the car, and Carl tries to chase them. Then Alan goes to his father's shoe factory. He is shocked because the place has been abandoned for a long time, but luckily he meets an old man who looks after the factory. The man tells him that Mr. Parrish went bankrupt because he used all his wealth to find his missing son. Apparently, his parents fell into poverty and they died 4 years ago. Alan comes back home to shave off all his hair and beard. Now he looks better and fresher. He along with Judy and Peter decides to finish the game, but when Judy rolls the dice, the pawn doesn't move at all. This is where the problem starts to arise. On the game board there are 4 pawns, but there are only 3 players. Alan finally realizes that now it's Sarah's turn. They have no other choice but to find Sarah so the game can continue again. After 26 years of not seeing each other, Sarah immediately faints when she knows that Alan is still alive. Sarah is even more surprised to find out that this crazy game has to be resumed. Apparently, Sarah has been depressed for 26 years because people thought she was crazy for saying that Alan was sucked into the game, and she was always lonely because people didn't want to be friends with her. Alan tries to convince Sarah to finish the game so her life will return to normal as before. She instead takes the dice and hides it. Alan lies that he won't force Sarah to play, but when Alan asks Sarah for the dice, he pulls his hand back and finally the game is back on. Sarah's dice give rise to a poisonous plant that eats humans. The plant almost eats Peter. Luckily Alan takes a sword and cuts the plant. When it's Alan's turn to roll the dice, he gets the words "a hunter from the darkest wild," makes you feel like just a child. Suddenly, a hunter named Pan Pelt appears. He immediately chases and tries to kill Alan. Alan already knew who Pan Pelt was when he was trapped in the world of Jumanji. Meanwhile, Carl manages to find his car, which is stolen by a group of monkeys. Luckily Carl's presence makes Pan Pelt distracted, and Alan is able to escape easily. After successfully tricking Van Pelt, Alan returns to his house to continue the game. Now it's Judy's turn to roll the dice, and she gets 5 with the words "Don't be fooled, it isn't thunder, staying put would be a blunder." The dice turn out to bring out wild animals, such as elephants, rhinos and birds. Then a pelican steals their Jumanji board. They try to chase the pelican, but the pelican drops the Jumanji board into the river. Luckily Peter manages to get it back. When they go back to Alan's house, they meet again with Carl and he blames Alan for all the chaos that has happened to him and the whole town. Carl immediately arrests Alan for interrogation. At the same time Peter secretly continues the game, but he tries to cheat to get 12 to end the game. As a result, Peter is cursed to be a monkey and his pawn falls backwards. Then they go to the town, but the town is in chaos caused by the monkeys and wild animals from Jumanji World. Van Pelt uses this opportunity to snatch their Jumanji board, and he hides in the supermarket to trick Alan. Meanwhile, Alan is finally able to talk with Carl and he tells Carl everything. Carl can't believe that he is really Alan. And it turns out that Carl was fired by Mr. Parrish because of Alan's carelessness. Alan apologizes for that and asks Carl to help him finish the game he has started. Meanwhile, Peter tries to snatch back the game board from Van Pelt, but he is too smart and can always reclaim the Jumanji board. Luckily he can't shoot them because he is only assigned to kill Alan. At the same time Alan and Carl arrive there and immediately enter the supermarket because their car brakes failed. They hit the paint rack, causing Van Pelt to be crushed by the shelf. They then return to Alan's house to continue the game. But the house has turned into a jungle due to the vines. They only need 12 to finish the game, but unfortunately Sarah gets 3 with the words, "Every month at the quarter moon, will be a monsoon in your lagoon." Suddenly, a big storm arises inside the house. A flood comes out from all directions and floods the whole room, and what is even more terrifying is that some crocodiles begin to emerge from the flood. Luckily Carl and Nora who have arrived there open the door of the house, so that Alan and the others can survive. Now it's Alan's turn to roll the dice and he only needs 10, but he gets 7 and gets sucked into the mud, which can cause him to fall from the top floor. Then Judy throws the dice right away, and the floor hardens again. When it's Sarah's turn to roll the dice, she gets an earthquake that causes the house to split apart. In the end Alan falls from the top floor, but luckily he survives by holding onto the vines. Then Alan tries to continue the game and he only needs 3 to reach the finish. Suddenly, Van Pelt comes back and points his gun. He tells Alan to put the dice in his hand and say the last word. His shots almost kill Alan, but suddenly time stops and all the creatures that appeared from Jumanji World suck back into the game. Apparently, the last throw was a 3 and Alan managed to finish the game. Not only that, he and Sarah returned to 1969 when they started playing Jumanji. Shortly afterwards, his father returns home. Alan immediately hugs him. After everything he has experienced in that game, he finally realizes that family is the most valuable treasure. Alan also tells his father that Carl is innocent of the machine breakdown at the factory, and he admits that it was his fault. Alan tries to find Judy and Peter, but they haven't been born yet. Then Alan and Sarah immediately throw the Jumanji game into the river and hope that no one will find it. A few years later, Alan and Sarah finally get married. At a Christmas party, they invite Jim and Martha who turn out to be Judy and Peter's parents. Alan and Sarah invite them to work together so they don't go to Canada and have an accident. But Jim says he will start this project with them after going on vacation with his wife in Canada. Sarah suddenly screams and forbids them to go on vacation. Jim and Martha eventually cancel their plans to go on vacation, and they agree to start the project next week.